Hello, good morning, everyone. We just started the session and already 30 people in the waiting room. So probably we should give our attendees a couple of more minutes to join. It's good to be here. Thank you so much to our great friends and partners, Anna, Anca, and Gerard, for joining us in this session. How are you? How is this morning in Brussels and Europe?
Very nice. The sun is shining here. I hope for you the rest the same.
Also sunny in Brussels.
Good morning.
We are not in my part of Brussels.
Yeah.
Here it's rainy. So I had to start the lights. You know, winters are quite dark here. It's lovely to have you. And maybe we should start with a couple of, no, I wouldn't put them as house rules, but recommendations. We are glad to have everybody here. The chat is open. Ooh, I have a test session here. I need to close it. So the chat is open. You have also questions and answers, and you can also raise hands, or I think you can send us reactions like hearts and stuff like this, which we will highly appreciate. If you want to if you want to join or have an intervention, I think you can just raise hands or write in the chat. We are here to accommodate. From my point of view, I have to tell you, we will not do a demo or a training, right? This is a discussion about the budgeting framework, which I think in 1 or 2 minutes we can already start. If you are interested in what we do at Hermix, please check out our website. We have, including video trainings and tutorials and the description of the product. Hermix is a platform for helping mostly companies win public sector tenders. And we work with a lot of companies all over Europe, but a lot also in the Brussels bubble. And we do have, by the way, a Black Friday promotion that I wanted to share with you as well. I think it's this one. So until we start, just get a look at this wonderful promotion that we have for Black Friday. This is it. What do you think? Should we start already?
Sounds good, Ștefan. So Ștefan, maybe I'll kick off, if that's okay. My name is Gerard McNamara. I'm the CEO and founder of Schuman Associates. And Schuman is a company that's been working on European funding for more years than I care to mention. We're starting from 1989. So many decades. We've seen many multi-annual financial frameworks, and we see them as the essential bridge for business planning and engagement with European funding. Today, I have two co-presenters, Ștefan, who I've been working with for more than 25 years on European funding, both on the very practical side of putting bids and winning bids and doing projects together, but also now in latter years through his work with Hermix, which is this AI-enabled platform to help drive public sales, and something we use at Schuman as well. My colleague Anca Călugăru has been working nearly 20 years together, Anca, at this stage, is a partner with Schuman Associates, is our MFF guru, and will share her thinking and insights on how the next years are shaping. She also leads for our structural funds, recovery funds, and many of the verticals that our clients are in, from digital, healthcare, energy, etc. So that's just a little flavor of the team. I just wanted to say, why is today's session important? So we believe the Multi-Annual Financial Framework enables us to see the future. So the next MFF is 2028 to 34. We are already beginning to see where the money is going. It's like that line from the movie, "Show me the money." And Anca will be showing you the money today. It's important because we can start to position early in an opportunistic way for funding, or we can also start to shape future funding for the more proactive companies or organizations out there. Essentially, bottom line is knowledge is power, and this is the key knowledge you have to have to position for the next years. At Schuman, we have a little question we ask ourselves, and it's the real win worth question. Basically, is it real? Can we win? And what's it worth? We don't like to do things in an academic way. We like things to be real and addressable. So today's session will start to answer these questions. So maybe just based on our slide here, you can see that Schuman Associates is very much present across the EU. Our headquarters is in Brussels. When we were engaged with the first MFF, we only had to have an office in Brussels because everything was decided in Brussels. But today, you have to be present in country and at the center. So hence our new structure. Well, not new, evolved structure over the years as it's gone along. When we just go on to the next slide, I'm not going to speak too much about Schuman Associates, but just to say that we work with the best multinationals, the best SMEs, trade associations, NGOs, and we work on one-off assignments. So sometimes people will come for a specific tender, project opportunity, and then other times it's developing a strategy, engaging with the EU, and building a long-term partnership together, building success. So having said that, I think we'll now jump into the MFF directly. And Anca, I will hand over to you.
Thank you, Gerard. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. A warm welcome from here as well. As Gerard said, it's an important time in the EU funding cycle, and at Schuman we are very excited to be part of this story. You see here on the slide, and I have mixed feelings whenever I have to present this slide because it shows a little bit how old we are, having been a part of all this MFF cycle so far. But at the same time, I'm very happy because I think we all see the history in the making under our eyes, and being part of this game, I think it's very rewarding. Just to set a little bit the scene, because some of you may very well know, others are newer to the subject. Every 7 years, the EU and the member states are negotiating and are deciding the EU multi-annual budget, or simpler said, the MFF. And now we are at the start of this negotiation process for the new MFF, covering the period of 28-34. And the start was given by the European Commission back in July when it proposed the budget for the new MFF, the legislation governing these budgets and the specific funds, And actually, this proposal coming from the European Commission marks the start of the negotiation process that will last between now, 2025, and the end of 2027. So in the next 2 years, the European Commission, less now, after having put forward the proposal, more the European Parliament and the Council will be reviewing the Commission proposal, will be amending it. And the aim is that by end of 2027, this proposal for the MFF, for the budget, for the future funding programs is decided, is sealed, and then the disbursement of the funds starts as early as of January 2028. It's a very exciting process, as I said, because you get to see, you know, how the future is being shaped, what funds are prioritized, what sectors, what areas. And I think it's very timely to discuss today how you can position in the next 2 years, how you can get ready early to benefit from the influx of funding that will start in 2028. Now, as I said, this is just a proposal from the Commission. It's subject to change, so please treat it as indicative. But I think it already gives us, you know, the starting point and some guiding principles of what to expect for the new MFF. And we see a very ambitious EU budget. Some say it's too much. Others say it's little compared to the investment needs. We are talking about almost 2 trillion euro EU budget that will be split in 3 main pillars, if you want. Additionally, there's a 4th one for administrative cost, but I would not go into that. The core is made of these 3 pillars that you see here. Competitiveness, which is the funding that is managed in Brussels by the European Commission and its agencies. The second one is on the national funding, so funding that comes from the EU to the member states, and these funds are managed in the 27 member states. And then the third box or pillar, if you want, is money that the EU makes available to the wider world, so to say, to Ukraine, to Balkan area, to Africa. There is funding going into these geographies, and we're very happy if you're interested in those to discuss. We have a dedicated department dealing with global Europe. But I think for the sake of today's time and the audience here, we will focus today on the competitiveness and the national plans pillars. Now, the first pillar, the competitiveness one, is triggered, as you can expect, by some external forces. Actually, all MFFs are triggered by the macroeconomic, geopolitical, let's say, landscapes and contexts. And in this case, for this new MFF, what I think is the driving force is the need of the European Union to become more competitive in the global race with the US, with China, and of course, the need for the EU to become more secure in all this, let's say, very complicated geopolitical landscape. So the MFF itself and the first pillar, the competitiveness one, are all about investing into becoming more autonomous and more competitive. Pillar one, as I said, is all made of funding that is managed in Brussels. Typically, you would see funding going into research and development, innovation, demonstration, but also scale up of technologies, of critical technologies. Traditional funding programs under this pillar are Horizon Europe. I think many of you know it already. Connecting Europe Facility, Erasmus, and all these programs will continue. They will have increased budgets. For instance, the Horizon Europe is almost double compared to the current MFF. They will continue, they'll be reinforced. But I think what is really outstanding and new to this pillar is the introduction of a new fund, the so-called and already famous, I think by now, EU Competitiveness Fund. And this is the fund or the bet of the EU and the European Commission on the European industry and on competitiveness. And as you can see there, The actual split of funding under this new fund, the EU Competitiveness Fund, is made under four big windows. The first important and biggest one in terms of funding volumes is defense. And let me tell you, and I think, again, you would know, defense was rather a taboo sector in the past. It was not eligible. It became eligible only for research and development in recent years. And now it's really in the front line. And it will really cluster most of the investment that will be available under the EU Competitiveness Fund. More than 130 billion euro expected, lots of projects and tenders from anything that you can imagine, from drones to military mobility, corridors for military purposes, crisis preparedness, civil protection, anything that has to do with the defense and security angle will be here and will translate into projects and tenders originating from this competitiveness fund. The second biggest window there is digital, and this is to say that the EU will invest a lot of funds into becoming more independent in advancing European champions in the digital sector. I'm pretty sure you're very aware of the discussions around Made in Europe and sovereign technology. It's all about investment under the EU Competitiveness Fund. There is going to be new rules and access to these funds, having in mind this Made in Europe approach. Funding is expected here to continue for connectivity, for cloud, for AI, for quantum. So expect, again, tenders and projects for services and hard infrastructure for this digital window. And then the other two important windows are clean transition, and this is to say investments in industry, always having in mind the need for decarbonization. We expect funding to be channeled into hydrogen, into heat pumps, solar panels, wind energy, anything that helps the EU and the member states advance the clean transition ambition. And then healthcare and biotech, this is the focus that the EU wants to put on pharma and medtech in Europe, again, supporting European champions and the resilience of the healthcare systems in Europe at large. This will be the driving forces for spending under the new EU Competitiveness Fund. Additionally to that, as I said, funding will continue to be disbursed through traditional funding programs like Horizon or Erasmus. And on top of that, some of you, I think, are very familiar and very used to working with tenders launched directly by the EU agencies, Commission agencies. And I think that will continue and it will be an important focus for your work after 2028. That was the first pillar, the competitiveness one. And I mentioned that I'd like to discuss today also the second one, which is the national and regional plans. This is money that goes from the EU to the member states. And I think most of you know it already. It's the structural funds or the cohesion funds. If you live in Romania or Poland or Portugal, it's very likely that the highway that you use to go to the sea or the schools where your kids learn are built or modernized with this funding, with cohesion funding. Cohesion funding will continue to be supported by the EU. It will be part of a new instrument called the National and Regional Partnership Plans. This is an umbrella instrument basically that will gather not only the cohesion funds themselves, but also agricultural funding, internal security and borders funding. So it's a novelty in the new MFF. The Commission proposes that each country has one dedicated national and regional partnership plan, and each country will get its share from this big allocation of 865. You will notice that, of course, top recipients remain countries in CEE, in Central and Eastern Europe, but you have there also Western countries or Southern countries like France, like Spain, like Italy, even Germany. that take quite a lot of the budget allocated to this pillar under the national and regional partnership plans. Even, countries like Luxembourg or Netherlands have their own share. So one plan, one country, one plan approach, everyone gets something. The biggest recipients in Central and Eastern Europe, in Southern Europe, and part of Western Europe. What I think it's important for you to be reminded of is the fact that the plans as such, they don't exist yet. They will be written in the next 12 to 18 months, probably, at the national level by your governments in country, in consultation with regional, local authorities, as well as NGOs, academia, and the private sector. You have this great window of opportunity to get at the table and discuss with your governments, with your industry associations, and be part of this process of shaping the national and regional plans. And it's extremely important because using these plans, the government will have to decide how they want to spend those allocations that you see on the slide. Which sectors to prioritize, what specific allocations to devote to digital as opposed to education, for instance, or urban development as opposed to healthcare. The boxes that you see there, or the bubbles that you see there, are the traditional areas that would probably get most of the investment in most of the countries. It's each government's choice how much they will devote to each of these sectors or others that are not here on the slide. So this preparation process, it's extremely important because it will tell you how the future funding and how the future tenders will actually be taking shape, which areas prioritize, how much money will go into each of these areas, and for what. Again, I think what you should expect is a tsunami of tenders, as we call it. Thousands and thousands of procedures for all these sectors in each of the member states, for infrastructure projects, for services, for supplies. It's very likely that most or a large part of the tenders that will be coming out as of 2028 will originate from these funds under the national and regional partnership plans. I have one last slide, and I think the main idea of today's discussion is to understand the importance of the MFF and of the early engagement with the MFF. Why is it important? I know I had a look at the participants list and I saw that you're coming from various organizations, various roles, business to government people, strategy people, commercial people, sales people. Some of you, I think, have imminent targets, Q4 targets, or tenders that have deadlines very soon. So there's always this, if you want, fight between being short-term focused and longer-term orientated. And I think to answer this dilemma, why do I care now for something that will happen, in 2 years' time? The answer is very simple. From our experience, the earlier you get ready, the better positioned you are to respond to future projects and to future tenders. Knowing early how things are shaping gives you that competitive advantage. I mentioned already, EU funding matter from a volume point of view, and you see there on the chart a very interesting situation. There are countries that rely almost totally on EU funding for their public investments, like Portugal. There are other countries that half of what they spend comes from EU funding. You see, mostly these are countries from Central and Eastern Europe and some Southern countries. It's important to look at the MFF because a lot of the business that you will have to deal with after 2 years from now will come from these funds. It's important to look at the MFF because, as I said, and Gerard mentioned as well, you have this great chance of being at the table with your governments, with the Commission, with the EU institutions as part of this negotiation process and shaping the MFF. Nothing is yet set in stone for the MFF. The Commission proposed, and now there is debate and negotiation on the final versions. There are public consultations happening. There are fora that you can access, and your organizations can really make their voices heard, showing your, let's say, your stance, your views on how the EU budget can shape, what the funding programs should look like. The industry voice, I think, is extremely important, and all EU institutions are aware that cooperation between the public sector, in this case EU, and the government side, and the private sector industry is critical to be able to spend all this money that we expect as of 2028. There's another argument, and I'll be very brief and then stop. Another argument that has to do with anticipation. So as the EU is reviewing and deciding the budget and the funding programs, it's also looking at updating the procurement rules. And I'm pretty sure you're on top of this. It's the bread and butter for any organization dealing with public sector funding and procurement. There's going to be, expectedly, a bigger focus on European-made products. So things like buy European, I think is the new mantra in Europe. It's very important that you meet this expected compliance requirements, that you understand your realities, that you already get ready and anticipate these changes, be them in green procurement or made in Europe or buy European. It's extremely important that you anticipate and that you get ready, whether that means, certifying your products to become or to meet the green standards that the EU wants to impose, or maybe choosing your partners so that you ensure that your supply chain has European roots. All these things you can already start considering, preparing, so that whenever that tsunami of tenders comes as of 2028, you're in a pole position and ready to address those tenders. So I think by now you got my message. Early intelligence is really power, and it will help you make some strategic decisions, because knowing the sectors that will get most of the funds, knowing the rules that will govern these funds, will also enable you to decide on things like what markets to prioritize, what solutions in your portfolio are deemed critical and relevant, what partners do you want to work with, what projects do you want to build and co-create. And I can tell you that there are organizations already looking at their investment pipelines and procurement strategies as of 2028. So that's a little bit why the MFF discussion is important today. These are the main parameters. This is the call to action. Get engaged, get ready. And I think that's a little bit what I had to, what I wanted to discuss today. We talked a lot about strategy, and I think it's the right time maybe to pass the ball to Ștefan, who can talk more concretely about very specific tools and how you can put this early intelligence at work for your benefit. I didn't see if there were any questions. I'm sorry, I had my full
Anca, it's Gerard here.
Yes.
There were some interesting questions,
Okay.
and particularly because we jumped straight into the future, the 2028 to 34. But there is a current program running, the 2021 to 2027. And there it was just over 1 trillion budget. The big innovation in 2021, it was all about recovery, and they created the recovery fund. We also saw an increase in healthcare post-COVID. But the projects we're working on today under this current framework are things like the Innovation Fund. Again, there were some questions about green, but green transition. All these programs are locked in. So basically, we're in a sweet spot of time right now because the 7-year 2021 to 27 plan is running. The member states need to use the money or lose the money. So they need to commit those funds. And then they have an additional 2 years after for the projects to be implemented and completed. But there's quite a timeline that they have to play to. And then in the meantime, so the beauty of right now, this every 7-year cycle, we're in that space where there's an accelerated spending of today's budgets, and then we're also coming to this strategic space where you can create and shape projects as Anca outlined. Sorry, Anca, it was just a little bit, and to give you a second to see the questions there before wrapping up.
Very interesting remarks. And as you say, there are many calls for proposals and tenders out, and I think from the current cycle, still to be targeted in the next 2 years in parallel to the preparations for the next one. And I think, Ștefan, in Hermix, you have some solutions on how to address this current leftovers, as we call them.
We have very interesting questions. So I want to make a bit of a transition, as Anca was saying, towards procurement here. So what happens when the tenders come out? But we really need to take the questions from Yves Collinet, Rudolf the Skipper. Thank you for joining, and it's good to be to see you here. This kind of approach that I've seen presented by Anca and Schuman is amazing, and I learned a lot from you here. Actually, I always learn from you. I think we have been working for many years. Many years ago, when I was doing tendering myself and sales, you were the ones who guided me through the European Commission procurement process, and at the time I was also looking at structural funds, especially for new countries. That was at the time of the last European Union expansion. So we were looking at how the European Commission is sending and shaping money to new member states. So your approach is amazing. You are looking at a very long time frame, a strategic planning over 7 years. As I was saying earlier, 7 years plus the current budgeting cycle, that makes 9 years from now. Me, typically, I was looking at short-term tactical issues, how to monitor tenders, and this is the key daily pain of any person engaged in public sector sales, bid, pre-sales. And this is obviously the first thing that we also do at Hermix, but also medium term, like looking at short and medium term future contracts. This means 1-2 years. So I've always done that. I've been looking at contracts that expire and needs to be renewed. This is in 1-2 years. I was looking at prior information notices, which is 3, 6, 12 months ahead of the actual tender, and procurement plans or yearly management plans of each authority. Most authorities in Europe publish yearly management plans and tender plans, where you can see what they plan to do next year or this year. But what you propose here is great. It's a strategic view for a 7 years period, starting 2 years from now. So to take over from Anca, the next budget of the European Union dictates. Oh, by the way, we are Hermix. We help companies win public sector contracts. We use a lot of data analytics. We collect data from a lot of data sources, not both the European Commission, national tender portals, Eurostat, ECB, and we aggregate and we clean up this data to make sense of public sector procurement, budgeting, and funding. So we are a data technology company. So I was saying, that the European Union budget dictates first where is the money, what the European Union plans to do. based on its strategic priorities, but also gives guidelines, not necessarily rules, about how this money is going to be spent, which means this will be translated in procurement rules. And to go into a little bit more details. So talking about where is the money, we have obviously we have the priorities. These are transformed into funding. These go to projects and then to tenders. The European Union's budget is a part of the European public sector, which is 53% of the economy at this moment, almost 2.5 trillion euros. It's great. And we already have presented by Anca some of the strong priorities, like the cohesion for the next budgeting cycle, like the cohesion and resilience funds, like the digital and single market, and so on. What we already have, for instance, in Hermix, and this is what I've been using forever, is to look also at what has been done with this kind of money. So, for instance, I can show you as an example, in Hermix, we have, the past spending of the European Commission for the last almost 20 years. But I can actually show you live. This is Hermix, and you have a report here. Let me zoom it in to make the writing bigger. So you have like almost 20 years of history of the European Commission budgets. And for this is based on historical data. You have stuff like who got the money, who spends the money, and so on. And it's actually quite interesting, right? You know, you have the authorities here, the buyers, the European Commission agencies, and so on. And it's interesting because sometimes you see these kind of trends, and I like to look into data and dig into data. And for instance, you see during the past 4 years, this huge spike. When I first saw it, I was like, what happened there? Do we have a problem in the data? No, it's not a problem in the data. This is the Recovery and Resilience Fund, which this is the amount of money that was allocated by the European Commission to the Recovery and Resilience Fund, right? These huge amounts of money. And this is going to be permanentized, I think, because we will have a significantly more budget in the future for the Cohesion and Resilience Fund, whereas this fund for the past 3-4 years was just for a temporary crisis measure. But you can also dig into details, like, for instance, who's getting this money. For the resilience funds for the past 4 years, these are the countries and these are the number of payments they got and the amounts. Like the biggest beneficiaries were Spain, Italy, Poland, and France and Germany, and Greece. No surprise here. This is the kind of analysis we do. We look at where the money was spent and we forecast where money is going to be spent. For instance, this is examples of reports for the future. And also, again, just as a couple of small examples, we were talking about research. I think it's going to be a significantly bigger investment in research in the future. This is the past research. It was... Oh, I closed it. So you have exactly the same thing. You can look at research funds and see what happened before. And this is an example of a market analytics. What did I choose here? IT market analysis for Belgium, with number of tenders and spending per year for the past 10 years analyzed. From a lot of data sources. So we analyze Belgium, national portals, Netherlands, UK, Germany, France, Spain, and so on and so on. So from all these data sources, we centralize the spending for the past 10 years. Who are the biggest spenders? These are the people you need to talk to when you prepare procurements. And you have exactly the same about competition and partners. For example, this is the IT market in Belgium. And you have, based on historical data, who are the biggest players. These are persons, these are companies that you want to be friends, or if you cannot be friends with, they are going to be your competition. This is how, what I mean by analytics. And going back to how tenders, how the European Union budgeting plan also impact procurement. there will be more and more. I wanted to say that the priority or even exclusivity for EU suppliers, it is mentioned, but it's mentioned in the strategic plans, but it is already applied. We started to see tenders, and not only in the security area, which are exclusive for EU companies, or even, this was an incredible precedent, the European Central Bank implemented during the past couple of years a set of tenders for the digital euro. And some of our great partners and customers, including Tremend in the group of publicists, won some of these very big tenders. It's very interesting that the European Central Bank decided that the supplier not only have to be European companies, but they have to be European controlled companies, which means all non-European, all companies owned by outside of the European Union were excluded. And this, we are going to see it more and more. Until now, there were exceptions. You saw it in defense. You saw it for the European Defense Agency in tenders for the Schengen systems. But now it comes to finances, and it will be implemented more and more. So advantage for European companies. The dual use, Anca was saying earlier that I've done a lot of research grants. We ran a couple. We just won one. Cannot disclose which one. Yesterday, we won another research grants for developing artificial intelligence tools for procurement, specifically for the health sector, which is amazing, and we are looking forward. We are working with the University of Luxembourg, great collaboration there. In this kind of grants, the previous cycle was forbidding dual use. The principles of ethics of the European Union and where the European Union wants to spend money is no dual use, besides a lot of other things which are typically forbidden. But now they are explicitly allowed. We will see research projects with dual use, and we already have in the CEF, in the connectivity framework, announced that the infrastructure will need to be dual use. So when you build a bridge, it has to be able to carry tanks, to put it very bluntly, which did not really happen until now. The priority for SMEs, the green procurement, and the e-procurement are things that I noticed are mentioned in the next budgeting cycle, but I have to tell you that they were also before, and they were not really implemented. I have actually an example here. This is, I analyzed from Hermix data the past 5 years history of the average value of a tender, because the priority says tenders have to be smaller in order to allow smaller companies and SMEs to participate. Well, the European Commission stated this objective many years ago, and as you see on this graph, they didn't implement it. So in theory, we give priority to SMEs. In practice, for SMEs, it's very difficult to enter the market or win big contracts. And we hope that Hermix is kind of equalizing the market, allowing smaller companies to get easier access to information and know-how. And for the e-procurement, what can I tell you? We are basically working with data and with systems, and Europe is incredibly fragmented until now. In terms of data standards, APIs, access to public funds data, and tender data is extremely fragmented. We put an incredible effort in cleaning up the data that we present to you from a lot of data sources which look different, which are not interoperable, but we have this objective, and we can only trust that it will be implemented more and more. So how the money is spent in practice, this is what we do. We do, as I said, tactical monitoring of tenders from a lot of data sources, from a lot of European countries, including the European procurement portals like the EU funding portal and TED, which cover all European institutions, a lot of international institutions. We have also NATO tenders and tenders from even UK, which is no longer in the European Union, unfortunately. But then then you have to have tactical information as well. So do I participate to this tender? Do I fulfill the requirements? Do I like the technical requirements? Am I eligible? And we do this kind of analysis with AI. In order to, and also the commercial analysis. Is there a competitor who is very, very strong? Because if there is a competitor who is very, very strong, my chances are very low and my effort to write a tender is very high. So for instance, this is the report of tenders that I am monitoring currently. And I was just looking earlier at two of them. This is the big time and means IT contract of the European Commission, DGTM. This is 4 billion. This is one of the biggest, or I think the biggest framework contract of the European Union. So in Hermix, you get this information like top 5 winners of similar contracts, people you want to work with or against, a detailed analysis of all the previous 103 suppliers with number and value of contracts won, and even a summary of the technical specifications. So these are the requirements, the budgets, the evaluation. It's a price-only evaluation. It's very interesting and it's very challenging. Lots, experts, technologies. So we have here a summary of the requirements. So in 1 or 2 minutes, you can take a tactical short decision. Is this something interesting? Even a chat, we have a GPT chat where you can ask your own questions, do your own analysis. And the same for the European Parliament, also a big contract open now. Again, with the context, suppliers, IT suppliers of the European Parliament, 128 companies. You have previous contracts, analysis of the requirements, effort. So we have what is here, something like 5 million person hours budgeted. They don't give a budget, they give the effort, and also a chat. This being said, about market intelligence, I already discussed a little bit, and that was pretty much it from my side. I can only remind you that, yeah, we do artificial intelligence, but this is not about artificial intelligence. The first time, I think, in 2 years that I'm not talking about AI. Please join our future webinars because we will go back to AI always and always. I'm really passionate about this in order to make Hermix real part of the procurement, sales and pre-sales teams and help us win more contracts. This was the promo code I introduced a bit earlier. We do have a small unannounced Black Friday promotion, which if you want to scan or use the promo code here, we would love to share. We would love to share it with you. I think it's time to move to questions. And I need to check how to change my screen and sharing.
Ștefan, I think we already started answering some of the questions that were raised in the chat box. I see there's another one from Graham on the question and answer tab. Okay. Yeah. So the thing, Graham, is that the sovereignty discussion touches on many aspects. It's and the Commission is now looking at various factors to consider whether, you know, a solution is sovereign or not. And they look at legal sovereignty aspects, they look at operational aspects, supply chain, technological sovereignty, compliance, environmental. So all these aspects, I think, have to be considered whenever you're discussing access for a non-EU supplier to a specific tender. And to be even more complicated, there are different rules governing different funding programs and different tenders. So there's not yet a horizontal or a single way of defining what a sovereign solution or a sovereign solution is about. So my recommendation would be that you treat case by case your situation and having in mind what exactly you're targeting to get access to, what program, what tenders, what customers, because there won't be yet, a clear-cut answer. The rules are in the making. But as I said in a previous answer, I think the cloud sovereignty debate, I think, will shape also the other sectoral sovereignty debates. What else do we have here? Global Europe. Oh, interesting to see there are interested participants in that funding stream. Gerard, I don't know if you want to come here and address that question, the Global Europe one. What would be some trends expected in that area? What sectors will be prioritized on the Global Europe?
I think this links in with the Global Gateway again. To a degree, it mirrors the priority areas that we see in the EU 27. Areas, I'm sorry, I'm trying to just see the question. Is it?
Some insights on Global
expected
Europe,
trends.
expected trends.
So I think it will continue to a degree as it has with the blending. So the blending has favored, in general, the larger scale projects. So I think for entities that have a large project, a healthcare solution, an infrastructure solution, a digital solution, those types of projects will continue to be funded and developed. What we have seen is more and more it has oriented towards these kind of large politically supported projects. So in the past it was much easier. There were national programs and there was lists of different projects, and then they would work their way through the system. Whereas now you have to do more work up front to shape and influence the projects.
Maybe a quick word on Global Euro, because it will include the support that goes into Ukraine for reconstruction purposes. So at least 100 billion euro goes to Ukraine under the new MFF. And that's money injected in all sectors that you can think of, from energy infrastructures, roads, hospitals, schools. Yeah, so I think if you're keen on working in Ukraine, a lot of the money will go to Ukraine under Global Europe.
Interesting, Anca, that the Commission has launched this framework for expertise for experts to already start defining the terms of reference for future tenders in Ukraine. So all the nuts and bolts and systems are being put in place to start the spend that's going to happen.
Okay, I see there's a question on how do we support SMEs in various ways. There are direct grants that SMEs can access, like the EIC Accelerator, Horizon Europe grants, inter-regional investments. So many programs favor startups, SMEs, and as you know, the EU encourages collaboration between SMEs and large companies. In some programs, you cannot have access as a large company to grants unless you demonstrate that you work with SMEs. So for sure, there is a focus on this type of beneficiary of EU funds. We support SMEs accessing grants directly, but we also work a lot with SMEs as part of wider consortia addressing Horizon Europe calls or Digital Europe calls or Erasmus calls. They are usually an important part of the ecosystem of direct beneficiaries of these funds. So I hope I answered
there's some more questions. Yeah, we focused a little bit on our global question on Ukraine because that's going to be the new program, but there are existing programs for Serbia and Moldova and other countries, and they're in the EU accession framework type projects often that support that kind of space.
and specifically for Moldova, because I know we have many Romanians joining today's session, in the new MFF, there is a priority given to bordering regions with war zones. That means that Romanian border regions with Moldova, Ukraine, the same for Polish regions, they will get more funding under Global Europe and under cohesion funds for the member states like Romania or Poland. So it goes both ways, funding that is channeled through these non-European countries and funding that is channeled to the EU members that have a border region with this more exposed countries, if you want. Okay. There was a question for Hermix, I think, in the chat. Stefan?
I thought I was covering them all. Regarding the question about grants, so currently we do help SMEs, obviously with tenders all over Europe, with the tools that I presented, and I know what level of investment is needed to make to monitor the tenders and especially to analyze a specific tender and answer to this. So I strongly believe that smaller companies have a significant benefit from using an automated tool that helps with monitoring and analyzing tenders and even market analytics. I mean, you know that doing a market analysis is an incredibly expensive job and takes a lot of time. So we have a lot of reports already prepared on the fly. Regarding grants, at this moment, we do not cover the research grants. We are working on it. We actually have a research grant ourselves to develop this kind of tools, which are very advanced but not yet available to users. We will write down your interest and we will inform you. It should be a couple of months maybe when we will have same type of support for research grants as well.
That's great. Thanks everybody today. It was really, especially the questions. It's always interesting to see what people are interested in. And please don't hesitate to contact us from Hermix and Ștefan with the AI-enabled platform or to Schuman if you're considering or looking at market opportunities and projects. We'd be delighted to talk with you guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Bye.
All the best.